Welcome to HornAfrica Insight Weekly Recap. Every Saturday, we bring you the biggest stories shaping East Africa and beyond. From power struggles on the Nile, to new energy ambitions, to the shifting balance of regional alliances, this week was full of headlines you cannot miss. And before we dive in, a quick note. Producing these videos takes real effort and cost. Tools like editing softwares, subscriptions, and designing that keep the content professional. If you'd like to support the channel and help us grow, you can do so through super chats or super stickers during this premiere. Every contribution goes back into making HornAfrica Insight even better. Now, let's get started with Monday's deep dive. From NASA's dream of the Aswan Dam to Ethiopia's bold completion of the Renaissance Dam, the story of the Blue Nile is one of power, politics, and survival. For decades, the river symbolized hope for some, fear for others. And in 2025, history reached a turning point. Ethiopia not only prepared to inaugurate the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, but also declared to the world that this project was about prosperity, not conflict.
President Gamal Abdel Nasser built the Aswan High Dam, a feat of engineering that electrified Egypt and symbolized Arab pride. But Aswan rested on a controversial foundation, the 1959 Nile Waters Agreement. It awarded Egypt 55.5 billion cubic meters of Nile water, Sudan 18.5 billion, and left zero share for Ethiopia or the other upstream nations. For Egypt, the treaty secured its lifeline. For Ethiopia, it was an injustice. Despite being the source of more than 80% of the Nile's waters, Addis Ababa had no legal right to use it. That legacy of exclusion set the stage for a clash that would resurface half a century later.
That was the build-up. Now let's go to Wednesday, when Ethiopia's long journey finally reached the finish line. On September 9th, Ethiopia officially inaugurated the GERD in Guba, a hydroelectric giant designed to generate over 5,000 megawatts of power, light up over 120 million Ethiopians, and export energy across Africa. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed declared, "We built this dam to prosper, not to harm our brothers." The event was more than a celebration. It was a statement of sovereignty. Leaders from Djibouti, Somalia, South Sudan, Kenya, and even Barbados stood by Ethiopia's side. South Sudan's Salva Kiir announced his country is preparing to sign a power deal. Kenya's William Ruto expressed interest in expanding imports of Ethiopian electricity. From the Caribbean, Mia Motley called the dam the Adwa of engineering, funded by the people. But even as Africa celebrated, Egypt struck back. On the very day of the inauguration, Cairo filed a formal complaint at the UN Security Council, warning that unilateral Ethiopian actions threaten its very survival.
Tariq Samtanal, Tariq Aitanal, Tariq Tamranal. Zare Fatari የመረጠው ትውልድ መሆን ስለቻል ታሪክ ሰርተን ታሪክ ላይ ቆመን ለማውራት በቅተናል። ህዳሴ ለኢትዮጵያ ብቻ ሳይሆን ለጥቁር ህዝቦች በሙሉ ምድር እስክትሰበሰብ ታሪክ ሆኖ የሚኖር ታላቅ ገድል ነው።
Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor and deep privilege to address you on this important occasion, the inauguration of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, a moment of monumental significance. I have already had a conversation with Prime Minister that we will be having an extended conversation on whatever reserve power that is available from this dam. We are ready to sign a power purchase agreement so that we can take offtake some of the power from this important dam.
The journey of a people who have remained proud throughout history, who have attested that the origins are here, and who have defied all attempts to keep them down. When we toured the facility in the last few hours, I turned to my brother and I said, this is the Adwa engineering feat.
We understand that water resources touches life differently in each country. For some, it's about survival and water security. For others, it's about energy and growth. All these perspectives are valid. Our challenge is not to deny the needs of any one of us, but to find ways to balance in the spirit of fairness and mutual respect. And Ethiopia has the right to pursue that happiness and prosperity.
Kenya is preparing to enter the nuclear age. Plans for the first nuclear plant in Siaya County, a $3.8 billion project, are set to begin in 2027.
First nuclear power plant in Bondo, Siaya County, a 500 billion Kenyan shillings or $3.8 billion project expected to break ground in 2027. The Nuclear Power and Energy Agency, NUPEA, says the 1,000 megawatt facility will be operational by 2034, and by 2037, nuclear energy could contribute more than 6,600 megawatts to the national grid. The site, chosen near Lake Victoria, will ensure a stable cooling source for the reactor.
But while Kenya looked to the future, Eritrea and Ethiopia were clashing again over an old wound, the Red Sea. Eritrea's information minister slammed Ethiopia's renewed claim to Assab, calling it reckless fantasy. PM Abiy had described the loss of Assab as a historic mistake, tying maritime access to Ethiopia's long-term security. Here's the context. Ethiopia became landlocked in 1993 when Eritrea gained independence. For years it relied on Eritrean ports until the 1998 to 2000 border war severed ties and pushed Ethiopia to Djibouti. Today, 95% of Ethiopia's trade depends on Djibouti, a costly vulnerability. Eritrea, fiercely protective of its hard-won independence, rejects any suggestion of Ethiopian claims. The tension has now drawn Egypt into the picture, recently sending medicines to Eritrea, a gesture that analysts see as part humanitarian, part geopolitical, deepening Cairo-Asmara ties against Addis Ababa.
Eritrea's Minister of Information, Yemene Gebremeskel, has condemned Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's renewed calls for access to the port of Assab. Speaking ahead of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam inauguration, Abiy described Ethiopia's loss of Assab as a historic mistake that must one day be corrected.
አባይ 1000 ዓመት አሁን የሚሰጠውን አገልግሎት እንዲሰጥ ማድረግ አልቻለም። ቀይ ባህር እኮ 30 ዓመት ነበርኛ እንጂ ቀይ ባህር ዛሬ 30 ዓመት ነው። የትናንትና ታሪክ ነው። የተፈጠረው ስህተት ትናንትና ነው። ነገ ይታረማል። ብዙ ከባድ ነው። የሺህ ዓመት ነው።
Eritrea rejected the remarks as reckless fantasy and political hogwash, arguing they violate international law and risk destabilizing the region. Addis Ababa, however, continues to frame its push for Red Sea access.
And Eritrea wasn't the only neighbour in the spotlight this week. Somalia also made headlines. Somalia's defence minister defended the Arab League after Ethiopia's ambassador criticised it for siding with Egypt on the GERD dispute. This wasn't just about water, it was about history. Somalia joined the Arab League in 1974, seeking political backing and cultural ties during long-standing tensions with Ethiopia. Today, that alliance still matters, By backing the Arab League now, Somalia signals its alignment with Egypt and Sudan, further complicating Ethiopia's regional relationships. No downstream shortages have been reported, but politically the Nile has become a battleground of shifting alliances.
Somalia's leaders defending the Arab League today is not just about Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. It's about maintaining an anchor of external support at a time when the country still struggles with security, terrorism, and fragile institutions. For now, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has not caused water shortages downstream. But politically, the rifts are deepening. Somalia's defense of the Arab League highlights the broader stakes. This is no longer just a water dispute. It's about alliances, history, and the shifting balance of power across the Horn of Africa.
And while the Nile dominates the politics, another story shows how economics is tying the Horn together. Djibouti's BCIMR bank, which controls nearly half of its home market, is now moving to Ethiopia. Talks were held with Ethiopian officials on September 10th. The bank, part owned by France's Bread Banque Populaire, hopes to expand trade finance and digital banking under Ethiopia's new banking liberalization laws.
CEO Sebastian Nahom says Ethiopia's economic reforms create a unique opportunity to support trade finance, investment flows, and digital banking innovation between the two countries. For Ethiopia, the move could provide much-needed capital and expertise to complement projects like the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam and other national infrastructure goals. The question now, will BCIMR's entry mark the start of deeper financial integration in the Horn of Africa? Or will Ethiopia's banking sector prove too challenging for foreign investors to navigate?
For Ethiopia, this could mean more capital and expertise to complement projects like GERD. For Djibouti, it cements financial interdependence with its biggest trade partner. From Ethiopia's historic GERD inauguration to Kenya's nuclear future, Eritrea's Red Sea standoff, Somalia's diplomatic moves and Djibouti's banking ambitions, the Horn of Africa is in motion. What do you think? Will cooperation win over conflict, or are we heading into a stormy future of rivalries? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and if you'd like to support our work, consider using Super Chat or Super Stickers right here in this premiere. Every gift helps us make HornAfrica Insight better, sharper, and more impactful. This is HornAfrica Insight Weekly Recap. See you next week.